A child hears the last sounds of a Roman legion as they vanish into the northern fog, never to return. It begins with a sound, distant, rhythmic, like thunder struggling to remember its name. The boy crouches in the bracken, barely breathing, his fingers white-knuckled around a smooth stone he does not remember picking up. He has been warned not to come here to the old ridgeline, where the land drops into the grey nothing of the north. But the curiosity of children knows no fear, and he has heard stories of men in bronze and red, marching in time with the beating heart of an empire. He has heard they are ghosts now, but ghosts do not sing, and yet he hears them. A chant, not in his tongue, the rise and fall of Latin commands, low and steady like a ritual. A charm against whatever waits in the mist. The sky above is bruised with cloud, and below the ridge, in the valley, the ground trembles with a terrible harmony boots on damp earth, armor shifting like metal waves. The click of oiled gears, the thunder of discipline, then silence. He dares to rise. There, just beyond the thinning edge of the fog, he sees them, hundreds, perhaps thousands of men, tall, shining, faceless behind helms, eagles raised, standards fluttering, a red river winding into the wild. The ninth, the last. He watches in silence as they move without pause into the mists of the north, swallowed not all at once, but piece by piece, like the land is learning the taste of them. One soldier, walking at the rear, glances back, only for a breath, but the boy sees it. Not a warning, not a threat, something else, a kind of quiet. As if the man already knows this is the last time any living soul will see them. The boy runs, down the slope, then up, his legs numb from cold, lungs burning. By the time he reaches the village, he has no words. His mother slaps his ears, hisses a curse. He is not to speak of what he's seen, not to bring the eyes of Rome down upon them. But Rome is not watching. Rome is looking elsewhere. A month passes, then another. The legion does not return. A rider is sent north from Iboracamyork, as it will one day be known. He vanishes. More men are dispatched. No sign. Then nothing. No proclamation. No funeral, no victory, no defeat. The name of the ninth is quietly removed from the rolls. There is no grand mourning, no marble monument. They are not declared missing. They are not declared dead. They are simply unspoken. It is said that decades later, an old man, hunched and half-blind, was found carving strange marks into a standing stone near the same ridgeline. He claimed to be the boy who once saw them march. When asked what happened to the soldiers, he did not answer. He only said, "They walk still, just beyond the fog." Some believe the boy saw only a vision, that the ninth never existed at all. Others say the mist took them that Caledonia, the land of the painted ones, devoured the legion as an offering to the old gods. There are scholars who insist it was political disgrace, mutiny, paperwork lost by time. But in the valley, there are whispers, shepherds who do not go near the ridge, stones that bleed when broken, songs the wind sings, though no lips move, the kind of silence that carries the shape of footsteps long vanished. At night, when the fog returns, some still claim to hear them. The drums, the chant, The last sound of the 9th Roman Legion, forever marching toward a place no map remembers. The 9th Legion, battle-scarred and proud, is ordered north into the wilds of Caledonia toward silence. They were the iron arm of the empire, forged in Hispania, hardened in Germania, feared in Britannia. The Legio ex Hispanova 9th Legion had seen fire and famine, uprisings and glory. They marched under the standard of Rome's eagle, its talons soaked in the blood of conquered peoples. They were not saints, they were not monsters, they were soldiers, men bound by duty, pay, and the quiet, poisonous promise of immortality through war. By the time the northern tribes stirred again, the 9th was weary, but undefeated, worn at the edges, yes, but still proud, still dangerous. It was sometime around 117 CE, under the new emperor Hadrian, that word came to the commander in Eboracum. Unrest beyond the wall. The painted tribes, those wild, nameless ghosts, who vanished into the hills at dusk, were growing bold again. Raiders had slipped south. Forts had gone dark. Smoke curled where outposts once stood. The 9th was summoned. No fanfare, no imperial parade, just a letter sealed in wax, heavy as a death sentence. According to some accounts, the commander Lucius Aemilius Carus read the order 3 times before speaking. He was not a fearful man, but old campaigns had taught him to respect the deadliness of silence. The North was silent now, too silent. Still, orders were orders. The Legion began its preparations. They were nearly 5,000 strong. Legionaries in segmented armor, auxiliary cavalry from the provinces, engineers, scouts, camp followers. They carried with them the bones of a dozen conquests' scarred shields, worn standards, names carved into blades. The 9th did not speak much before the march. A hush had settled on they, fought like the calm before a storm that never ends. A Roman historian later wrote that the 9th sang as they left Eboracum, but other records suggest there were no songs, no drums, only the creak of leather and iron, the breathing of beasts, the soft cry of women who would not see their men again. They passed north, beyond the cultivated lands, past the reach of Roman law, into the borderlands, where the forest rose like a wall and the fog moved like a living thing. Each mile brought the Moors closer. Each step bent the light a little more strangely. The road narrowed, the path twisted, the trees closed in. Villagers in the last Roman-held outpost said the men looked like ghosts already, the edges of their faces blurring in the dusk. They warned the commander, "Don't go further," one said, clutching his child. There are things in those hills that do not die. But the 9th had faced druids, wolves, plague, and fire. What could a whisper do? So they marched on, into the land the empire never tamed, into Caledonia. It is said that the Pixif, that is what they were, watched from the high rocks and shallow graves. Silent as roots, they did not attack. They did not cry out. They only waited. There are no records of what the Legion saw in the first days of the campaign. No surviving logs, no letters, only rumors passed down like curses. A farmstead burned, but untouched by looters. A Roman scout returned without his tongue, eyes sewn shut, a trail that led in a perfect circle, no matter how far they marched. The weather changed. 2 Rain that did not fall, but clung to the skin like breath. Winds that whispered Latin words back to the men at night. And then the animals began to flee the camps, horses trembling, biting their reins, dogs that would not bark, birds gone from the sky. Still, the ninth moved forward, proud, obedient. One night, the Legion lit no fires. The commander ordered quiet. It is not known why. Perhaps he feared being seen. Perhaps he feared being heard. They camped in the shadow of a great hill, surrounded by standing stones no Roman map recorded. Some said the stones were older than the empire, older than man. That night, a trumpet sounded not theirs, then silence, then screams. The next morning, the ninth was gone. But that is the next part of the story. Here, for now, they still march, still proud, still armored, still breathing mist and fire. We see them at the edge of the forest, at the edge of the world, not yet broken, but no longer whole. This is the last moment they are seen by the world of the living. This is the last breath of the Ninth Legion before the land opens its mouth. The moors and forests of ancient Scotland breathe with omens, and the soldiers begin to disappear. One by one, the hills did not roll here. They rose and folded like something trying to wake. Beyond the known roads of Rome, the land buckled into a kind of madness. Trees stood where no trees had grown before, crooked and knotted as if in pain. Stones whispered beneath moss. Paths changed beneath the marching feet of men trained to follow only straight lines. The ninth was used to darkness, but this was a different kind. Not the absence of light, no. This was a darkness that lingered even at midday, woven into the air, thick as oil, alive with a memory no Roman tongue could speak. And then the first man vanished. Not in battle, not in sleep. He was there at morning roll call and gone by midday. His boots remained. His spear was a prite in the dirt, as if he'd only stepped away for a moment. But he never returned. They searched, of course. Standard formation. V-shaped sweep. Horns sounded. Hounds deployed. Nothing. His name was Gaius Longinus, born in Ravenna, 26 years old, with a wife who sang when she chopped herbs. No trace. The commander barked orders, redrew formations, doubled the watches. But the wind did not carry his voice far. It never did in those woods. The men learned not to shout, not to speak too loudly. Another man vanished 2 days later, then 2 more that night. A scout found a boot filled with blood. A gladius snapped cleanly and half not rusted, not bent, but sheared. According to some accounts, the centurions began burning incense in secret, murmuring old prayers not sanctioned by Rome. They left coins in the roots of trees. They refused to sleep near the standing stones. Then they found the first body, stripped of armor, folded like a child, buried under a cairn that hadn't been there the day before. There were no wounds, no bruises, no signs of violence. His face was twisted not in pain, but his hands were folded over his chest, fingers locked, eyes open. They burned the body. It smelled like cedar and wine. Some of the men said they ground beneath the pyre whispered back. The commander, Carus, did not show fear, not openly, but he stopped writing his daily reports. He paced at night, muttering equations, Unit numbers, terrain estimates, food rations, names. Always names. He sent messengers back south. They never arrived. The forest had closed behind them like a wound. In dreams, the men saw eyes in the trees blue, inhuman, endless. They heard flutes made of bone, played somewhere very far and very close. One soldier claimed he awoke with dirt in his mouth and the scent of wet hair on his chest. He was found weeping at the edge of the woods. He could not say why. By the end of the second week, the Legion was no longer a legion. It was a collection of survivors wrapped in steel. Praying to gods Rome had forgotten. They stopped marching. They stopped searching. They built a circular camp. Not square against regulations, against tradition. One evening, a fog rolled in. Pale as milk, thick as wool. The kind of fog that doesn't just obscure, it deafens. The kind that fills the lungs and never leaves. Men held hands that night, grown men, warriors, trained killers. Some say they saw shapes in the fog, tall figures wrapped in hides, with painted faces and eyes like pits. Others say the shapes were their own shadows, folding back on them. It is said that the commander finally prayed, not to Jupiter, not to Mars, but to something nameless, something older. He took off his helmet and placed it upside down in the center of the camp. Into it, he poured wine, then blood from his own palm. The mist thinned for a moment, long enough for them to see the hills, long enough to glimpse the flicker of firelight far above, at the summit of a dark hill crowned with stone. That's where they went, upward, toward whatever. Waited. Some never made it. They lay down and did not rise. No wounds, no cries, just a quiet kind of surrender, like candles snuffing themselves out. Others walked as if possessed, their eyes glassy, mouths full of names that didn't belong to them. Those who climbed spoke of sounds, drums beneath the earth, a chorus of whispers inside their skulls. Some say they found altars, stone circles, bones too, large to be human. One soldier, eyes wild, claimed to have seen a woman waiting there tall, antlered, her robes of crow feathers. She did not speak, but when she opened her mouth, the men wept. The commander ordered torches. Fire, he said. Fire is truth. They lit everything, and something screamed. Not human, not animal, not anything Rome had words for. The fire raged, but the mist never lifted. That night, the commander carved a final note into his shield. We are not alone. The land remembers. Then the shield was found alone, no body. Only scorched grass and footprints that led nowhere. No man who climbed that hill came down again. Those who remained few, broken, silent, stared into the morning light as if they had seen the shape of death and found it beautiful. They began to vanish shortly after, one by one, like embers snatched by the wind, until no one was left. No trumpet, no surrender, no grave, only the land and its appetite. According to some accounts, the Legion met a final stand under a red moon, but no one lived to confirm it. They say the moon bled that night, red as spilled wine, bloated and low. It hung over the highlands like an omen sewn into the sky with black thread. The moor trembled beneath it, not with wind, not with rain, but with the weight of something ancient rousing from sleep. No Roman record describes the battle. There are no scrolls, no epistles, no etched tablets or survivor's account. But the Highlanders tell a different story, passed in whispers, wrapped in superstition. The tale survives not in Latin, but in the mouths of peat cutters, stone keepers, and daughters of the mist. According to one such telling, the ninth reached a clearing near a black loch still as glass, deep as night, ringed by heather and skeletal birch. The commander, Lucius Aemilius Carus, had drawn the remaining legionaries into tight formation, their numbers halved, their eyes hollow, their faces smeared with the dirt of a land that no longer acknowledged them. They had not eaten in 2 days. Their boots were shredded. The horses were gone freed or taken. Some say they fled into the woods themselves, galloping blindly into the trees with eyes rolled white, as if some voice called to them. But that night, the legion did not flee. The horns sounded. Not Roman horns those had fallen silent days ago. These were deeper, older, made from curved bone and wrapped in sinew. A howl made music, and from the edge of the forest the shapes came. They did not charge. They did not cry out. They stepped into the moonlight as if the land itself had reshaped into men, painted blue, naked but for wolf pelts, and beads made of teeth, eyes glowing with reflected fire. Behind them, tall figures loomed impossibly tall, crowned with antlers, cloaked in fog. They did not speak. They did not move. They only watched. Carus raised his sword, not with fury, with acceptance. He knew now there would be no rescue. No report to deliver, no monument in Rome. Whatever this was, battle, ritual, sacrifice, it was the last thing any of them would know. They formed ranks, as they had done 1,000 times before. Blades drawn, shields raised. The ninth would die Roman. The enemy came at once. No trumpet, no signal, only the crack of bone clubs, the flash of sharpened stone, the terrible ululating scream that rose like smoke and pierced the hearts of even the hardest veterans. What happened in the clearing can never be fully known. Some say the Romans held their ground, killing dozens, maybe hundreds, before being overwhelmed. That they fought with the cold, methodical precision of empire, every step calculated, every thrust exact. Others say the line broke almost immediately, that the men fell screaming, not from wounds, but from what they saw visions, ghosts, something not entirely of this world pressing in on all sides. Some clawed at their eyes, others dropped their weapons and walked into the loch, disappearing beneath the black surface without a ripple. It is said the commander Carus was the last to fall, that he climbed a low rise as the fighting died down, planted the legion's eagle standard into the heather, and held his sword high even as a spear punched through his chest. They say he did not scream. They say his eyes never closed. They say the earth swallowed him whole. In the centuries since, treasure hunters have searched for that eagle. None have found it. Some believe it still stands beneath the loch, rusting slowly in the dark water. Others claim to have seen it rise in the morning mist, just for a moment, before vanishing like a breath. The next morning, there was no sign of a battle. No bodies, no blood. No broken blades. Only the flattened grass in the shape of a circle, and a single Roman helmet turned upside down. filled with red water. The Picts never wrote about it. Rome never acknowledged it. And yet, the ninth was gone. No message ever reached Boracum. No courier returned. The legion's name was scratched from records, quietly, as if erasing it would undo what had happened. They were replaced by others. Fresh boots, clean armor, but none would march north again. That part of the world was left untouched. A no-man's land, a wound in the border of empire. It is said that at night, when the moon is red and the wind is still, you can hear them. The chants, the iron drum of marching feet, the final breath of 5,000 men echoing through time, locked in a place no longer on any map. If you go walking on the moors, listen closely. The land remembers, and sometimes it sings. Fragments shields, teeth, a rusted dagger surface centuries later, whispering of what might have happened beneath the peat. Time does not bury everything. Some things it merely hides. In the low wet places where no sun reaches under moss and bracken and centuries of silence, something stirs now and then, rising not with thunder, but with a shiver soft and deliberate, as though the land is finally ready to breathe its secrets. It was the year 1924 when a farmer digging drainage near the Scottish Highlands unearthed what he thought was a root, thick, pale, curved. But it was no root. It was a human femur, ancient and strong. Nearby lay a corroded iron-tipped triangular, unmistakable, a Roman pilum. Historians arrived in boots and tweed. Shovels replaced plows. Over the course of weeks, the earth gave up more. Bronze clasps, a coin bearing the face of Emperor Trajan, a shattered helmet, teeth filed, polished, some still nestled in a jawbone. Their remains scattered by scavengers or time. A reasonable, quiet theory, one that did not disturb the bones too much. No battlefield, just objects strewn across a stretch of moor that no one dared farm before. Inside, 3 human skulls, placed in a perfect triangle, each filled with white ash. No tools, no weapons, no context. One molar held a tiny carving of a she-wolf, so finely etched it could only have belonged to a legionary. Something stranger, more careful. And then a child's sandal, Roman make, far too small for a soldier. A note was filed in the local archive. Remains of possible Roman origin. Insufficient evidence for conclusive attribution. The archaeologists recorded, sketched, debated. The local workers whispered. One expert described the metal as sick, as though it had been melted not by fire, but by something colder. They had known the stories of the vanished army, of mist and fire, but now, with the past unearthed in fragments, a strange hush fell over the fields. Tools dulled faster than they should have. Watches stopped. One man refused to work after finding what he claimed was a finger curled, like it was still pointing. The findings were inconclusive. Scattered remains. No mass grave. A theory was proposed. Perhaps the ninth had been ambushed, not wiped out, but broken, rooted. Some fled, others perished. But not all agreed. A single shield, boss flattened, scorched. Its brass edges warped by heat, was unlike anything seen before in the region. In 1959, a peat cutter discovered a shallow pit lined with stones. One of the skulls bore a puncture in the forehead round, smooth-edged, surgically precise. Not the work of blades or clubs. No museum exhibits. No documentaries. They closed the site, reburied what they found. But the locals knew. They still know. They say the ground is haunted, not by ghosts in the way most imagine, by memory, by the weight of unburied stories. Shepherds report hearing chants beneath the soil soft, rhythmic, like boots marching under the earth. Children say they see soldiers in the mist, headless, carrying torches that burn blue. A visitor once claimed her compass spun wildly near the hill. He built a cairn of stones, sat beside it. No one saw him leave. Only his boots were found the next day, neatly placed at the edge of the moor. Her voice recorder captured something when played back. A single word, spoken in Latin, pediti, no witness to their end. Only the relics, objects, divorced from time, scattered like breadcrumbs into oblivion. The lost. It is said that one archaeologist, years later, returned alone to the site, bringing with him one of the dug-up relics, a small ring inscribed with a barely legible name. Another disappearance, quietly filed. There is no definitive proof of what happened to the ninth. No scroll to explain their fate. Others insist they were slaughtered to the last, but in a way so complete, so ritualistic, that nothing remained. And always the question, why no mass grave? Why no signs of victory for either side? Why so few bones for so many men? Some believe the ninth was absorbed, taken in by the tribes, becoming something else entirely, their identity consumed by fog and fire. A more chilling possibility whispers from the peat, not just their bodies, but their names, their histories, their echoes, that they were not killed at all, but given to something older than war, older than Rome, something that asks not for blood but for presence. The land took them, and every now and then the land gives back just enough to remind us they were real. They were here, and they are not entirely gone. Some say if you press your ear to the heather in that forgotten valley, you will hear them, not weeping, not screaming, just breathing, waiting. Even now, the ninth walks the edge of myth and memory, a story Rome forgot but the land remembers. In the official records of Rome, the Legio IX Hispana ends not with a flourish, but with a pause. A name erased, a silence written in ink. There is no decree, no inscription, no record of defeat, surrender, or return. They simply vanish one moment guarding the northern frontiers of Britannia. The next, nothing. Historians argue the logistics. Some say they were transferred to the east. Others suggest a quiet disbandment after mutiny or disgrace. A few even believe they never left. Biboracum at all that the entire northern campaign is a fabrication. But the ground tells a different story. There are no certainties now, only echoes. A fragment of a name scratched into a cave wall in Pictish lands. Cales, a Roman name, or part of one. A broken gravestone in York with no date. Only a line, for my brother, who walks still. A leather-bound journal from the 19th century describing a shepherd-esque dream. An army marching beneath the hills, torches in hand, faces veiled, eyes glowing faintly like the moon in water. These are not facts, but neither are they fiction. They are something in between, something that lingers in the grey, because in truth, the ninth has never fully left. They walk still, not in the flesh, but in the folds of mist that slide like veils across the moors. In the way the wind stutters in the early morning, like breath catching in a throat. Travellers speak of cold spots, of footsteps behind them where no one walks. A researcher once saw his own reflection in a lock twist and turn, wearing armor he did not own. Children playing among the stones have come back speaking Latin words no one taught them. Some claim the ninth is cursed. Others say they were not taken, but chosen to become part of the land, to guard a wound in the world, a rift between the known and the never known. Even Rome, in its bones, may have sensed this. For all its pride, all its thirst for order and dominion, it let the ninth vanish quietly, as if it knew it had sent its legion into something larger than empire. And so, the name faded from scrolls. The eagle standard was never seen again. But every empire forgets something. You'll see no markers, no signs, only a narrow path, worn smooth. Every empire leaves a bruise. The ninth remains in that space where memory bleeds into myth. Too many bones to be forgotten, too little certainty to be remembered. They exist like smoke in the shape of men, like prayers said in the wrong tongue. It is said that on certain nights, when the fog rises in coils and the moon hangs low, you can walk the old paths where the Roman roads once stretched, and if you follow it long enough, you might hear it. Metal scraping, marching feet, a breath like wind through iron. The ninth, moving still, bound not by empire, but by memory. Not gone, not dead, just lost in a story no one dares finish. The last chapter in a book with no title, a name carved in fog.